Yeah, and we have a great question to start the third segment as well. So let's all sit upright. If you need a little break to get up, stand up, few energization, do that while we're chanting. If not, just really enjoy the chant. Lord, I am thine. Be thou mine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. I am thine, I am thine. I am thine, I am thine. I am thine, I am
Let's just center ourselves again for a few minutes. And if there's something in your heart that you would like to have clarified, perhaps you can just either write it or when we have a moment, ask the question. So let's just rest in our inner selves and feel the blessing transforming power of Master and Swamiji and all of our gurus. Peace. Amen. I ended the meditation. I ended the meditation by saying, "Oh, I forgot to unmute." That was my actual ending to the meditation. Zoom creates all kinds of weird little humorous things now. Okay, Supriya, you said you had a good question there.
So the question is, or comment and question, in leadership, can humility mean being willing to accept the possibility that God will solve the problem?
Yeah. Um, yes, but he needs an instrument. It's in the situation that I've been struggling with. We've been working with. Let me put it in the most positive phrase. In the confusion that we've been trying to sort out in regard to our community, people have and I have said things like, oh, well, God is in charge. He knows what he wants. It's all God's will, and so on like this. That's all true. That's a real easy thing to say if you don't actually have to actually make a decision. If you have to actually make a decision, of course, that's your background. That's your background voice. But in the moment, you have to look at something objective and you have to decide what to do. So, what gives you confidence to make a decision and the courage to make a decision is the fact that God is in charge. But you can't say God is in charge and use that as a reason not to make a decision. So we have to be practical in our idealism. I mean, and I would have a lot of people who were quite peripheral to the situation giving me a lot of philosophy. And some would say, well, that's what you say after the whole thing's settled. You can't, it's not, you can't say it right when you're just right in the heat of the battle in a lawyer's office, trying to figure out what you're supposed to do. You have to pay attention. But the background, see, this is the same as the other question. The background is that I'm an instrument, I'm not really in charge. And I've really come to feel whatever decisions are made, they'll be the right decisions because we're completely sincere. And even if they turn out to be the wrong decisions, they'll be the right decisions because we will be guided to make the decisions that are needed for the karma to play itself out. And if that decision is catastrophic for the project or proves to be a grievous mistake on the part of the individual, well, that's how the karma had to play itself out. We can't be better than we are. The courage to act is faith in God. So it's a good question, and it's a very important one. And this is being practical in your idealism.
So before I read the next question that has come in, if I could just, on that one, if you could speak briefly on, because I've read about this ever since my Catholic background. I've been aware of it, and anyway, humility, I believe, is an amazing quality that I aspire more toward again and again. But I also know there is something called false humility from the readings of my background.
Mm-hmm.
Any comments on that? Humility and the possibility, and be aware of false humility.
Well, tell me what you mean by false humility. I don't actually
Oh,
know.
sorry, I should have used these words.
I just actually realized when you say that, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. But
Okay, yeah, well, as soon as you asked that, I thought, oops, I should have used these words as well. Spiritual pride.
spiritual pride that actually masquerades as false humility, as humility.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so spiritual. Oh, I'm so spiritual. I'm just so
W-
spiritual. Is that what you mean? That you kind of play it
yes,
small.
but hopefully most people don't do that. But could be other subtle ways that humans are not even aware of. Like, oh yeah, I've meditated every day and done this. And and some people can say, oh yes, I meditate every day, and then other people may again, I'm not judging because I don't think this is even in our community, but it's something I've been aware of from my Catholic days. That's what I mean. So this spiritual pride, taking pride in what I have done. Like Swamiji was so humble. I felt like he never took pride in the books or the songs or you know anything.
Yeah, I think
Anyway, does that help?
I have enough of an understanding. A right understanding of humility and a right understanding of humility in the context of Master's path as expressed through Swami. I mean, we're getting very, very specific here. Master has many followers, the Kriya of Lahiri Mahashaya has many threads. So the particular family within the family all have different ways of expressing themselves. So we are Master's family within the Ananda expression of Master's family. So there are characteristics that Swami Kriyananda has presented to us that are what he understands to be, and I agree with, of course, the right understanding of how this all works together. The traditional Catholic way of doing things, which you're more steeped in it, Supriya, than some of us are, but there are many Catholics in our particular little community here. We have all these Catholics that they would just sort of click into the catechisms that they remembered. And our little light bearer group was mostly Catholics and Jews. And, the Catholics would just start down these tracks, and there were 4 or 5 of them, and they would just begin reciting these dogmas. It would be like, what the heck are you guys talking about? So Ananda's, the biggest background is Catholic and Jews within Ananda, interestingly, because they're both have a lot of heart. But of course, there's lots of others. So it's just proportional to the population of the country. There's more of both Catholics and Jews. But the point is, let's see now. We've all absorbed a lot of these ideas, even if we haven't lived through them to the extent that some have. And the Kali Yuga concept of overcoming the ego, which is to be humble, was to suppress the ego. And it was considered to be egoic to assert yourself. So the tradition of a nun is that you're actually trained. Your eyes are down, your hands are in your sleeves, you're silent, you don't speak, because the way to get over anything you do might be an expression of ego, and you don't want to be expressing ego, you want to be humble, so you suppress it. And it's possible to become a saint if that's really the right way to do it. But when Master came, it's a whole new age and it's a whole new story. So Master came, he wrote music, he wrote poetry, he went out and he gave lectures. He was just this dynamic world-conquering figure. His spiritual heir, one of his spiritual heirs, Swami Kriyananda, is an incredibly dynamic world-conquering figure who is a creative artist, on a level that is just breathtaking, just in so many different fields. And Swamiji not only himself is a creative artist, he's attracted to him, vast numbers of creative artists, has written about how creativity, he's written about creativity as a path to God realization. And he's also spoke very directly about the fact that in Kali Yuga, people tried to suppress the ego. In Dwapara Yuga, we transcend it by expressing it, but not expressing it selfishly. We express it creatively and selflessly, and that we should use our talents to serve God, and that's how we transcend it. And he himself set the most remarkable example, and he actually even put it this way. Everything I say is in the book. If it's important, it's in the book. He said, I am here to teach a new kind of creativity, which is whatever you're trying to create already exists, and we merely tune in and become the channel for it. That it isn't our own, it's that we attune ourselves. And this is the artist as a channel, art as a hidden message, all the different ways he's meaning in the arts, all the different titles. He wrote that book 7 times before he finally got it finished. Okay, but it's a fundamental aspect of this. So we can't be humble because we just don't exist. It's like that's the safe way to play it. And with all due respect, SRF is focused on a monastic way of being a devotee, and it's a very traditional monastic way of being a devotee. And so, as far as I can see, their ideal is that kind of world rejecting kind of tightness, which often makes it difficult for those who are not in the monastery, because they either feel like second-class citizens or they're very awkward about how they're supposed to express themselves. At least this is the potential danger of that, and why Master actually wanted cooperative communities.
where everyone could live according. You could have children, you could have a family, you could have relationships, which inherently requires a degree of personal involvement that monasticism of that type, and even the monastics of this age, Swamiji wants them to be different, as he wrote in Renunciate Order for the New Age. Okay, but the necessity to transcend the ego doesn't change, because that's a divine value, and that's a divine necessity. It's a question of how do we do it now. So the simple answer, quite simply, is we are not responsible for what comes through us. We are just an instrument, meaning we are not the creators. We are cooperating with the divine, and being the window through which divine realities can be expressed. When an interviewer asked Swamiji, "What is your favorite music?" Swami, without thinking, said, "Mine," like that. And I think he corrected it in the moment, but he might have corrected it later. He said that was a misleading comment, because if the reporter had asked me what is the best music, he wouldn't have answered that way. But when they asked him what his favorite was, when he said mine, he said the mistake was, first, it wasn't his. He said it was the music, because he always said that it was all given to him, and he was just the instrument to express it. So it was never his. It was the music that came through him. But he said also, naturally, I'm in tune with it. That's why it came through me. So it is the music that I enjoy the most, because it resonates with my soul. So you see, that's such a subtle difference than saying, look at this great music that I did, but it's also recognizing it's the actual consciousness that knows that God is the doer. And see, again, this is how when Swami actually acts it out for us, we see how subtle this is. And he's perfectly comfortable saying, I love this music. And, even I several of these are in the book, sitting next to him while the oratorio was going on. And it just, at some point, he just said, it's so beautiful. And the fact that he actually was the instrument through which it came through, that doesn't mean anything. It's not that he's going to deny he was the instrument, because to deny the instrument is untrue, but it's more egoic to deny it. Oh, I didn't really do it. It wasn't I who did it. After all, it wasn't I. I mean, don't thank me after all, because I didn't do it. I mean, there's just so much in that. It's just, yeah, isn't it beautiful? It's just, there it is. And I had the good fortune to be there when it came through. And I love it, because really, if he didn't love it, he should have kept working on it until he loved it, because you don't want to stop when it's crummy. You want it to be perfect before you stop. And then there it is. Isn't that marvelous that it came through? So true humility, Master defined, and it's a perfect definition, is self-honesty, which is, yeah, Swami was the instrument. And yeah, he loves the music that came through him. That's just a fact. He can't say it isn't. But to then somehow think that makes him more loved by God, or more important, or that you all ought to listen to me because after all, I am the composer of this music, that's not true. And that's where it falls off the wagon. So people were very confused by Swamiji sometimes, because he would, after a period of work, I mean, I remember more than one satsang, he'd come into the room with a list. And so in the last week, I wrote 3 books, 5 pieces of music, gave 4 lectures, recorded 8 television shows. And then he would sometimes say, have I forgotten anything, Lakshman? Oh no, you also did this and this. And then I did this, and then I did this. And people would think, what an egoist, just how egotistical he is. But then he would say, all you have to do is just put your attention at the spiritual eye and ask Master to give it to you. And people didn't understand that that's what he was actually saying. That which I do, ye shall do, and greater things. And he was the living proof of it, you see, because he would say, I had 5 days to write this book, and Padma was insisting we needed it by this X date. And I just really thought, I just can't do it. I just can't do it. Oh, yeah, that's right. I can't do it. But Master can do it. And so I sat down, and so I wrote Cities of Light, and didn't even take any editing. But it wasn't ego. It was just self-honesty, because it happened. So it's a much more challenging position, because if you just suppress yourself, you're not in danger. But if you express yourself, you have to have the self-honesty to be able to deal with it appropriately. When people in our community talk about doing creative things, I still do as many creative, innovative things as you want. Just be open to feedback. Because just because you did it and you love God doesn't mean either that it's good or that it's really in tune with the vibration. It just means that you did it. And so you have to be ready to learn, not merely to be criticized, but you have to be, if you're going to express yourself, then you have to learn how to express yourself. Did you have a question, Mark?
Yeah. So I think this kind of dovetails into what you were just talking about, but can you talk a little bit more about Swami's role as a channel for Master for us, and also how you feel that your discipleship has changed now that Swami is no longer in the body?
Good questions, both of them. The question of where Swami fits in the picture, or in the lineage, or however you want to say it, is a big issue, and I talk about a lot in the book, and I'll summarize it here. Because of, there's two things that are going on here. In the Sanatan Dharma tradition, which is the tradition of India, which has never been an institutional lineage. I mean, they just don't institutionalize religion, because to institutionalize it, just the mere effort to institutionalize it immediately kills it. So why would you even do it? Because spirituality is conveyed by vibration and consciousness. So India has kept true inspiration alive by allowing it to run its own course. There's a great master, and he inspires. If that great master has great disciples, those great disciples will inspire. If some of those disciples are not even authentic, then the inspiration they give will die out of its own in a very short period of time. Nobody needs to get involved. Furthermore, every disciple has both the potential and the duty to be an instrument of his guru to whatever extent he feels inspired and guided and capable of doing. It's not merely that he has to get permission from, it is not that he has to get permission from someone to do it or be approved to do it. It's expected when a great guru comes into the world, because we are a part of all that is, and we must be generous in the blessings that come to us. This is the most fundamental law of life. Now, Yogi Ramya in India, who was a disciple of Ramana Maharshi, who Master said was a fully realized master, Swami Kriyananda spent a few days with him. He lived in this extremely obscure little village in India, and he had virtually no disciples around him. He lived with these villagers who weren't interested, with whom he only talked about crops, weather, and food. And Swami said to him, basically, why aren't you doing more? How can you be who you are and just be here? And the yogi replied, God has done what he has wanted to do through this vehicle. So it isn't a question of everybody has to be important and big, but everybody has to have it in their mind that I'm here to serve. Serving the Guru is a fundamental teaching. So naturally, and the other part of it is, Master said, before you can be self-realized, you have to liberate 6 others. And now that's a very definite statement, that you have to take what's given to you and you have to share it before you yourself can be free. Now, Swami talks about what level does that mean, because if everyone has to liberate 6 others and all those 6 have to liberate 6 others, you see the whole thing freezes and nobody ever gets to God realization, because everybody has to be freed before anybody can be freed. So obviously it's progressive. And anybody who is self-realized himself or herself becomes a guru. And that's what the path is. The purpose of the path is that we all become self-realized. To be self-realized, we have to be gurus. It's just necessary. And then you look at human life. Human life is all through relationships, isn't it? We have our mentors, we have our teachers, we have our friends. The worldly life is just the lower version of spiritual life. So we're going to have all these relationships, and we're going to have all these people who are helping us, and we're going to be somebody's six. And Master, that doesn't, now the question though is, if you're a disciple of Master and you become highly advanced, it's not you who is presenting the energy. It's the attunement with the Master through you. But Master can't be everywhere at once. And there's many people on the planet, and all these different relationships form in these great spiritual families. I used to think of Swami Kriyananda as Master is the king, and Swami Kriyananda is the prince put in charge of a certain province. And the authority that Swamiji had was because Master put him in charge. And the governing principles that Swamiji used came from the king. He didn't create them. And his appropriate carrying out of his duties was the degree to which he was truly representing the king. And if he violated what the king wanted, then he would lose his credibility immediately. He would lose his authority. It would be taken away from him, or we should rebel against him, one or the other. But living in this province and not living in the capital with the king, I'm so glad that the prince is here, because the prince can be the instrument for me of what the king wants me to do. And the prince, carrying out his duties appropriately, constantly tells us that I am just the prince and he's the king. And one of the things, again, that SRF has lost in the way they've presented it is that Master did not assert himself with the singularity that has come to pass now. Master deferred to Babaji. Master deferred to Sri Yukteswar. Even in the story that Swami tells in the path, when a lunch guest said to Master, I understand Dr. Lewis was your first disciple in America. And Swami said, Master got very grave and said, so they say. And then, the woman was so confused that Master then said, I never think of them as my disciples, they're God's disciples. And see, that's how Master took himself. So SRF's way of interpreting Master and the weird necessity to make sure that Swami never overstepped his boundaries has caused us to misunderstand how the flow of grace comes. Because the masters, they're not individuals who are all holding their little turf. We're standing at a bank of windows looking at the sun. And the point is the sun. And you can see the sun, and you're looking at the same sun through all these many windows, if you are looking at the sun. So and for many, many years, Swamiji would not clarify this in any public statement. I had personal conversations with him, others of us did, but he would never assert his position. He did it, one, because he was always hoping for reconciliation with SRF, and he knew that if he ever asserted any personal position, it would never happen. So that was one reason why he didn't. The second was actually interesting, was because they had denigrated his right to be a disciple and to represent Master to such an extent and so viciously for so many years. And Swami was not so arrogant as to just dismiss that as absolutely wrong, that he made a resolution, which he followed steadfastly for 30 years, that he would never do anything to draw people to him or to hold people to him at all, so that if it happened, it would have to come from Master and not from him. So he always really pulled himself back. And it would be sort of like, and that was actually terrific, because if you felt anything from him spiritually, it wasn't the culture of Ananda. In fact, the culture of Ananda was almost the opposite. But if you began to sense, as someone said to me, and I put this in the book, I get the feeling that everything that happens here emanates through Swami. I said, shh, that's right, but don't tell anyone. Because he didn't want us to say it. So, okay, you don't want me to say it, that's fine. When the blind man was healed and Jesus said, they say, did God heal you or did so-and-so heal me? And the blind man looks at Jesus who healed him and said, I don't know, you tell me who healed me. You touched my eyes, now I can see, you tell me who it was. I don't know who it was. That's sort of what I would say to Swami. You just tell me. If you say it's not you, it's Master, I say, fine, it's Master. You're teaching me, I'm learning from you. And what I'm learning from you is also what the source is. In 1998, after the worst of the lawsuits were over and it was just a mess, Swami wrote a paper called Ananda's Directions. And for the first time in a public document, or almost for the first time, he said, I think he said most, but he might have said many. Most of the people, for most of the people who are part of Ananda, I am their channel to Master. And it was a huge thing for him to say. And then when he had a meeting with all the colony leaders, he summoned us to Italy. And I think it was the year after, 1999. And at that time, he said, because the litigation that SRF filed, instead of solidifying their monopoly, destroyed their monopoly. So it destroyed their monolithic ownership of this teaching. And since then, which has of course been so many years, you aren't even aware of it, it's just been busted open. You see all the pictures of Master and all the gurus everywhere, and anybody can claim it. Prior to that, you would get a letter from SRF's lawyers, and it would scare the bejesus out of you, and you would stop. My favorite story, that way, I'm going to put it over here. A dear disciple of Master was in Los Angeles. She was a very feisty girl. She started a preschool, and she called it Master's Preschool. And believe it or not, SRF's lawyers came and told her she couldn't call it Master's Preschool. So she went to the courthouse and she changed her last name to Master. That was what I mean. And I will defend SRF. They did it for good motive, but they were trying to control the river, with your thumb. And so our lawsuit, thank you God, blasted the whole thing open. So Swami says to us in 1999, there will be countless rivers of inspiration and grace flowing from Master, countless rivers. And all of them will be, there's always a leader, all of them will be defined by some disciple's idea of what the Master's teachings are. And Swami has repeated many times, he said, it's impossible for any one disciple to encompass the whole of Master's teachings, which is the error in saying that the president of SRF is the sole authorized representative. He said, it's just not possible. I mean, even another God-realized Master couldn't do it. It just can't be done. It requires all these disciples, and all of them will have the flavor of their own inspiration. And this is how it's always been in India. Each disciple represents his Master as I understand him and as best I can do it. And it's how I grow as a disciple, is that I attune to my Master and try to give my Master to others. That's who I should be. So Swamiji said it will be important to identify our particular strain as coming, and Swami would not even use his name, as coming from one particular disciple. And he also said it will be important in future that the people who are part of Ananda know to look to that particular disciple to understand what is appropriate for this ray to do. Because if we start looking to other disciples as to what this ray is supposed to do, this ray will get confused and diluted. So therefore, it's necessary. And at that time, he told us that whenever there was a picture of Master, there should be a small picture of him. And because then you know what you're looking at. And also Swami was looking, he's looking, 100 years into the future. He wasn't just thinking about that, because otherwise Ananda will lose its focus and its vitality. Because this is who we are. And if you don't like it, you can just go somewhere else, because you have lots of choices. You had two parts to your question. Did I answer them both, Mark, or did I just answer one?
Well, the second part of the question was how you feel that your relationship with Swami, how that's changed now that he's out of the body.
Well, I put it to Swami this way years ago, and he agreed. Sir, it's just not going to be as much fun to be on this planet after you're gone. And his response to me was very serious. He said, I know, I've been through it. Master's presence, I know I've been through it, is what he said, referring to Master leaving the body. It's just not as much fun. Swami was so much fun. He just perked everything up. And wherever he was, it was just a ton of fun. And I haven't lived in the same community and even the same continent that he's lived on since 1987. So it's not that I saw him every day, but I was in touch with him and I could go see him. And I would just, wherever I was, periodically he would come through. And it would just be a big boost. And it would just, it wasn't even that it would change things. It was just so much fun. And, you have a lot of fun, then everything is easier after that. And it took me a year or two to realize he was not going to show up again. Of course, I knew it, but it just took about, almost 24 months before I just really got that, whoa, this is the new rhythm. The new rhythm is he's not going to show up again. In terms of actual inner feeling or inner attunement, I think my relationship with him had always been on so many different levels that it wasn't like a big shift when he left his body. It was a big shift. And my gosh, how greedy can we be? He had Master for 3.5 years. That's what I would think. He was 26 and Master was gone. He'd barely started, Swami hung on for a long time. I mean, there's a point at which you're just ashamed of yourself, even if you still would like it. And there have been times when I just think, gosh darn, if I could just write him an email, or if I could just get on a plane, it would just be so helpful. I'd really like to put this issue in front of him and hear what he has to say. But then I wake up in the morning and I feel like we've been talking while I was asleep. So it would be awfully nice to still be able to meet him in the body, but I wouldn't say it's been a big change, except in a big way. It's not as much fun. This planet is not such a great planet, especially here in early Dwapara. I asked Swamiji once, please, sir, can we wait till a really high age before we come back? Do we have to do this early Dwapara bit again? It's really getting me down. His response was, I don't intend to come back at all. Later, he repudiated that. He said it like this. I know myself, he said. I'm going to want to help you all. He said, whatever God wants, he said, of course I'll do it. Yeah. And so we'll see you again. That's great. Okay. Good question. Supriya, did you have a question? Or
Let's let Hugh go.
Okay, Hugh.
Thank you, Supriya. That was very kind of you. Just while we're still on the subject of SRF, and I wanted to tell you also, it's so true that it's Master that sends us where we need to be, because that was my own experience. In 2003, I read the SRF book. That was my initiation. That was my autobiography of yogi experience. And I ordered the lessons and I tried them for a few weeks. I just couldn't get anywhere. And then online, I just by chance found Ananda Dallas and Supriya. And, I just took off from there. So it's Master that led me to Swamiji. But while we're on the subject of SRF, where are we right now in the reconciliation with SRF? Because we sell their books, when we were open back in May, but all the years before, we sell their material. We refer people to, in my meditation classes, I would refer people to SRF books if that's what I felt. Where are we right now in this reconciliation?
Who knows? All the ones who are directly in. Let me answer this more intelligently. There will be countless expressions of Master's teaching. He came to, he's one of the major spiritual figures of Dwapara Yuga, not the only by any means, but one of the major ones. His teaching cannot possibly be encompassed by any one or two or three or 10 or 500 organizations. Swamiji said, in time, Master's teachings, he said, not necessarily his name, but his teachings will be the defining cultural reality, because self-realization has come to unite all religions and we're going into a higher age. So that's, on one hand, it has a life of its own. On the other hand, there are two forces in the book, which I think it's about to be republished as an ebook. It was called A Place Called Ananda, but it was Swamiji's really talking about how Ananda came to be. So it's his own, it's the most personal book he's written. It's wonderful. When they reissue it, it may be called Go On Alone or something. They're about to put it out as an ebook, Crystal Clarity. And in the end of it, there's a chapter, toward the end, there's a chapter called Karmic Trends or something like that. And the struggle, especially in the West, between an institutional approach to religion and every disciple is equally capable of receiving a message, equally capable of divine inspiration and acting as God and Guru's instrument. Those are two very, very different approaches to religion, to spiritual life. So there is not a reason in the world why members of SRF and members of Ananda shouldn't embrace each other as kindred spirits and walk hand in hand, helping each other toward the light. But even saying that, which is the truth, there are real differences in the way we approach this. And the SRF model, and maybe it'll change in future, but I think the man who's president now, Chidananda, was highly trained by those who just left, and I doubt if it's going to shift strongly in his lifetime, but maybe it will, because he's a very different man than those women. We really do see it differently. They believe in authority coming down through the institution. It's just a Catholic model. It's not really very hard to penetrate. It's like the Pope is directly descended from Peter, and that's where it comes from. And we're still close enough to, I knew Master, and I knew the one who knew Master, and I knew the one who knew the one who knew Master, for that to last for a long time. Monasticism is a true spirituality, and authority is passed down through the lineage. That's completely different than Ananda. Ananda is decentralized. And someone asked me a question about organization. Swami was emphatic about the importance of decentralizing Ananda, of not having a single spiritual authority, about giving, even in his lifetime, every Ananda colony is autonomous. And after we went through litigation, legally, everything is completely separated. We're not, and what binds us together is actually the Sevak order, is our shared spiritual friendship. That's what binds us together. There's no actual legal ties. Now, I'll just say, Swami did say that there should always be one worldwide director, but that director should not be put forward as the most advanced person in the organization or the sole authority. He said, but if we don't have one spiritual director going forward, he said the ideal of what Ananda stands for could become diffused. And then we would gradually lose focus as to who we're supposed to be. And he said, the one who really represents that, as Swami said, without any necessary support from me, is Jyotish, because Jyotish is universally recognized. And now I want to just say this, Jyotish and Devi together, they're a married couple, which is nice. It's not necessary, but it's a nice image for Ananda. They epitomize what it means to be an Ananda devotee. Starting as it happens now, but it might not always be. They're not monastic. So you start there. They're householders. They've been householders since the early 70s. They raised a son, and yet they're still held up as the worldwide leaders of Ananda. This is who Ananda devotees are. They wear their office so lightly. They're completely humble. They're extremely funny. They're absolutely, utterly natural. In a perfect context is a conversation between a friend of mine and Davy. A friend of mine did some kind of display, and she did the whole thing. She realized after it was over, she had never included a picture of Jyotish and Davy, and it made her feel bad. She thought she'd made a mistake. She said, Davy, I'm so sorry I forgot to put this picture there. Davy looked at her, and Davy has this way, and kind of rolled her eyes and said, honey, if I never see another picture of myself, it'll be too soon. It's like, what do I care? Now, we just take that for granted because that's the way Swami was. So that's the way we are. But you could see it doesn't have to be that way at all. It could be very different. So as long as we have somebody who clearly represents who we are, then from there, everybody else knows who to be. But as Ananda grows, we're going to have countless, I hope, highly magnetic, saintly people. And I hope that we're going to be so big that we're going to have, multiple little families. But we'll all be working together with the same vibration. And I hope SRF and countless organizations that are not even named are going to also have countless little circles, and each one will have their own little family, and it'll all just be perfect. And the people who like SRF, feel in tune with, they're either connected to those people, these are my people, or they like the way that it's presented. And whether or not they grow spiritually is not our issue. It's between them and God. To argue with each other about this is insane. But the Catholics and the Protestants have been killing each other for a really, really, really long time. And Swami was very worried about it. He said the Catholic Christian Church held together for 300 years, but look what a mess it's been since then. He said Master's work is dividing in the first generation. That's why he worked so hard. But by the end, he sort of shrugged his shoulders and said, this is the way it goes. But once they stopped trying to stop us, we have absolutely no wish to try to stop them. And so at that point, the day the litigation ended, as far as we're concerned, it's over. Would we want to recombine? Even Swami at the end of his life said, I don't think so. He said, I think that we are just we're two different families. We're cousins. We should be closer to each other than anybody in the world. And even, I see how my time is up here. When Swami was talking to the bishop, the Catholic bishop in Assisi, because the bishop in Assisi was sort of upset with us. There was actually an article in a Catholic journal about how dare these yogis usurp the blessings, the Catholic blessings of Francis and St. Clair. I mean, really, it was crazy. So Swami went to see him. And he was a very, very closed-minded man. And no matter how hard Swami tried, he just wasn't going to get anywhere. And so at the end of it, he said, at least we can agree on one thing. Neither of us is the real enemy here. The enemy is atheism. And that the bishop could see. So the enemy is atheism and materialism and greed and selfishness and dishonor. The enemy is not somebody who has a slightly different interpretation of the same guru. There are our bosom brothers and sisters. But that doesn't make us the same either. So we'll have to see what happens. Anything else, or have we reached the end of our time together? Thank you all for hanging in there for all this time. It's always a joy to talk about these things. My mostest, funnest way to spend time.
And thank you, Asha, from all of us on the Central Coast of California, who are in desperate needs of your energy, your prayers, and the prayers and energies of all of our Ananda Guru Bhais all over the world. Thank you.
We have a job to do. We were at, let's see, was that in Jyotish's blog? We were born for this hour? No. It's the advertisement for the program that Sergio and Narayani are putting together in India. We were born for this moment. And we are. It seemed like a good idea at the time to be born for this moment, so here we are.
The good news is, let us accept that. Let's hear that and know what it means, or figure out what it means. We are born for this moment of whatever's going on in this world. And for everyone who has been on, we say thank you from the bottom of our hearts. When you were speaking about you and Swamiji and everyone, and after he left his body, and you just wish he was there for an email and things. I don't know how this correlates, but I'm still going to say it. It's almost like, okay, we who are separate in miles, many miles here, you know, you wish Swamiji was there. Well, we wish you were here, you know, physically, but that'll happen when it can happen. But it's that somehow that correlated together to me.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm trying to express it, and I know you won't. You can just listen, Asha, and say whatever you want to say. You're a beautiful disciple of Yoganandaji's. You're a beautiful example of one who lived with Swamiji in his life and everything he went through, and you give it to us in book form. Yes, and we're grateful, but you give it to us this way. Thank you for coming online and sharing this. And unless someone else has something to say, I just feel like a great way to end would be to take these blessings. And as Sam said, you know, we have all of California there. We have Guru Bhais up and down the coast with the fires happening. And let us send the blessings of this incredible satsang here there to California. May we just have this visualization and then send out 3 ohms?
Let's do that.
Is that okay?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah, so let's see California, Ananda Village. We know that. Go up north first, visualize it all the way up to our Portland, Oregon, and Washington communities, all the people, and then come all the way down the coast. Those fires that are happening, just see coolness, wetness, knowing that it is in protective light of Divine Mother, and go all the way down to California. And from there, let's just expand all the way through the U.S., seeing God's light expanding across all oceans, to all countries, all around the world, until we have our whole planet filled with light, surrounded in Divine Mother and Master's light, knowing, and Babaji, knowing, and Jesus, all of them, Sri Yukteswar, Lahiri, they are in charge of it all, as well as in charge of our lives as we surrender and give to them. So see our planet, light, each and every creature and soul on it. And now let us share the blessings that we have shared here this morning. Let's rub our hands together and chant 3 ohms, sending that vibration out to all. Peace, gratitude.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Amen. If cameras want to come on for the final wave, the virtual hugs. And no, tomorrow we have Jitendra online with us for Sunday service. And Jyotish and Devi have selected a date later in September to come back online with us.
Wonderful.
So just know there's lots to come.
And Asha, when are you coming back?
You invite me.
Okay.
Have a computer, we'll show up. That's basically what. Have internet, we'll show up. So up to you. I'll do what you ask. Okay. God bless.
Stay.
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru.